Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you might be in the world today. I'm coming to you live from the frozen tundra suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, in Naperville. Why don't you go ahead and give me a shout out in the chat of where you're at today? And hey, let me know, is it above freezing or below freezing where you're at? Because it's pretty cold in Chicago today. Frozen as well in Ohio. Excellent. Yeah. I think pretty much, yeah, everywhere. Like if frozen, yeah. Hey Carl, how are you? Michael's very cold. Frozen tundra, downtown Chicago. Yeah, Missouri in the southern, you might be a little bit warmer, but way more snow. It's a crazy storm that we came across the US last week. See who hits the high temperature. It looks like 17 so far. We won't even be above freezing in Chicago until I think late next week. But it's the end of January. This is what we expect, right? Welcome, welcome, Portland, Maine. The sun is out. Yeah, the sun's out here today too. It does make a difference, right? Even though it looks like it's warm and it's not, it's nice to see. Absolutely. All right, as you keep checking in, let me know where you're at. Minneapolis, my hometown. Today is we're talking about measuring L&D's contribution to skills growth. So the discussion today is really it's how L&D can begin to tackle the opportunity around how skills are being pushed throughout an organization and how L&D can begin to show how they're holding up their end of the skills bargain. And what I mean by that is, obviously a lot of companies are pushing the skills strategy, right? We're not so much focused on courses and content, but more about what kind of skills are we focusing on as a company? What skills do we really need in order to maintain our competitive edge or get ahead, or even as we're looking to do workforce development and talent planning, right? What kind of skills do we need to bring into the company? What kind of skills do we need to develop? And of course, they come to L&D for that help. But as we also know, whenever we develop learning solutions, it's not just on L&D, right? We need to partner with our stakeholders in the business, but it's obviously our end of the bargain is the development and delivery, but then we also need our friends out in the business to help us kind of pull that kind of stuff through. So I'm going to start jumping into the conversation here. The chat will be open. In fact, we are going to have a little activity where I'm going to need your help in the chat. So keep that open and on the side. So we are going to have some interactivity here today. All right. So my name is Steve Lang. I'm the Director of Consulting of Metrics That Matter at Explorance. I've got over 25 years experience in learning and development. So I'm just an old instructional designer and working in learning and development my entire life. Worked for companies like Arthur Andersen, the Bell Telephone System. Yes, I'm that old. MetLife, and before I came here, I worked at McDonald's as a learning development manager, learning development technology manager. Was obviously involved in measurement and evaluation. And I ran the measurement and evaluation for the L&D US business at Hamburger University. Yes, it's a real place. We give out degrees in hamburgerology. So I was a client of Metrics That Matter and decided that this was an awesome place to work and to be able to share my skills and experiences with other folks. So came here and have been here for 7 or 8 years now. And speaking of here, so some of you may or may not be up to speed on Explorance and who we are and what we do. So let me just share a little bit quickly. Broadly, Explorance, we're focused on feedback from companies, from higher education institutions. If you have a student in college and they take a course and then they get an evaluation, chances are it's coming from our technology, which is blue down here, where we can instructors and deans and universities can see where their students are being engaged in their courses. And on the corporate side, this is where I sit, is where MTM comes in. We also have Millie down here, which kind of is a golden thread to everything, which is our AI-driven qualitative analysis tool. So it's a standalone tool. It's also integrated with our other tools, and it really speeds up that insight with your comments. And where MTM kind of fits in here is with all of you, with corporate learning and development. It's grounded in the science of learning measurement. It's one of the most widely used learning measurement platforms, and it comes with a lot of great features and functionality. We're really well known for our benchmarks. So that way, if you don't know what good looks like when you're measuring learning and development, we have that benchmarks. We have those KPIs. You can compare yourself to others in your industry or even internally. We have scientifically validated measurement. We have that Millie tool built into our tool. We have a blended learning module where you can really measure learning in the flow that it happens. Because we all know that it's not just one course anymore. It's a course. It's an e-learning. It's a couple other things, and we bundle all that in, and that can be hard to evaluate. So MTM helps you do all that, and then more importantly, give you those results. It helps you really monitor and manage your data through dashboards, through reporting, through some other interactive features and tools. So it's a little bit about who we are and where I sit. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of key things. One is just, what is the skills challenge? What is that? And what are the implications for L&D? What are we really looking at in this space? I'm going to ask you for some help about a group discussion on some best bets on how you might already be measuring skills. You might have some thoughts about how you'd like to measure skills. So I want to have that conversation before kind of revealing what we're thinking about in terms of how technology can help you do this. And then, of course, we'll wind up with some call to action points. So skills is a core currency. We say this, it's the new currency of the business, really, not just learning and development. Everywhere you look, right, people are talking about skills, all the industry analysts and consulting groups. L&D is undergoing a lot of transformation. Organizations are facing accelerating skill gaps. We hear about upskilling and reskilling and driving skills. You might have heard of this thing called AI. It's a thing, and how it's driving change and the way we learn in organizations today. And they're shifting workforce expectations with all of this. So leaders are under pressure to deliver not just training, but skill outcomes that are tied to business strategy. And this brings in challenges for L&D because we're trying to bring things in terms of being skills first and meeting employee expectations. Employees expect to be developed now, right? Any list you look at of why people leave organizations, probably one of the top three is I wasn't developed. My skills went unused. There was nothing there for me to learn or to be able to grow. And it's not just L&D that's using skills. It's around workforce planning and management. So HR and talent management are using this skills data to make sure we're bringing in the right people, making sure we're developing people in the right ways with the right skills at the right time, right? A lot of this stuff. And some of it's not necessarily new per se, but the focus on it now is so great that we want to talk about, how do we bring this in and get our handles around it in L&D? So some of the implications here for L&D. The first thing I call is it's shift. We need to shift. And the shift is from providing content to developing skills tied to business outcomes. And it's also a shift in culture. This isn't like, when I was first started L&D a long time ago, and we had these huge content libraries, right, that your company would subscribe to, and maybe say, okay, here, we're subscribed to this content library, now go and get it. We're trying to avoid that approach because frankly, it didn't really work. We want to do and move to something different. It's also a shift in culture. It's letting people know that it's okay. It's okay to have to need to be reskilled or upskilled. It's okay to explore new skills and find new ones. Maybe try things that are a little bit different. I just attended a webinar last week, and one of the companies that was on it, they spent 2 years just building their culture around skills before they really launched their skill-driven L&D strategy. They were just getting people comfortable around what it meant to be reskilled or upskilled before they actually pushed everything out. So it's a bit of a culture shift as well. We have to make sure that we're putting those things in place so that we can do that. We have to build, right? We got to build some things, right? And some of these things you might already have built. Some of them are already enabled by tools. Think about things like skill taxonomies, skills that are linked to courses, that are linked to workforce planning and mobility. So things like that we have to make sure that we have in place, before we can just again unveil the curtain. And probably the most important piece here is the partnership. And this is true no matter what we're doing. I harp on this a lot with our current clients and in our workshops and other webinars. But we've got to partner with business leaders, because when we think about skills, we think about anything really, we want to be able to make sure we're defining and measuring and developing and designing the right things. We want to report on skill-based outcomes, but we want to make sure that we're tying those to the right things. We're making sure we're tying it to workforce development, or that we're tying it back to a business problem. A lot of people are asking me, how do I measure my AI skills? I'm like, well, how would you measure anything in terms of learning and development? Start with the business problem that you're trying to solve with that skill. And that's where we have to work with our stakeholders to figure that out. You say that, oh, we have to, this AI literacy is the most important skill that we have in our company today. Like, okay, but what business problem is it solving for us? Can we connect it to something? Is it connected to, like, we want to use AI to help us, I don't know, close business proposals faster, close sales proposals faster. All right, now we're talking, right? There's a skill set there that we want to close business proposals faster, because that gets us more customers, because it's, they don't have to wait 4 weeks to get something from us. They might make a different business decision. So how does AI help us do that? And we break that down into the specific skills that we want to learn, and then we can tie those skills to our courses, which are then tied to that business problem. So it's really not a lot different from what we should be doing today, but it's a lot more discrete now that we're talking about skills. All right, so all this said and done, but what can we do about this? What are we going to do about measuring skills? So what I'd like you to do is, in the chat, just quickly in a sentence or two, a quick description, what are some things you're doing today, or that you could be doing? Maybe it's something you've read about, maybe it's something you're thinking about, but what are some things that you're doing that can measure skills that are connected to your training efforts? And there's no limits here, right? It could be something that you're just like, gosh, I wish we could do this. I wish we could, attach GPS transmitters to people and see if they're actually doing the things that we're doing in class, or whatever it might be. So in the chat, just hit me up with what are some of your thoughts. Maybe you're doing something today, you're trying something today, you're thinking about something, maybe you've read about something, but let me know in the chat what you think, how L&D could go about measuring skills. And then I'm going to reveal a little bit of research about what other folks are saying in your industry. Surveying leaders to gauge application, sure. Tying objectives to business goals and defining how it will be measured. Yeah. One of my favorite phrases is, what does success look like and how will we know? Right? So when you think about measuring skills, you have to be able to define what that success looks like, and then how are we going to be able to tell? Pulse surveys are a great idea. Survey the managers on application. Absolutely. Our managers are huge conduits for learning application and development. After all, they're the ones that are doing the performance reviews, right? So we want to make sure we bring them in. Comfortability and skill before and after. That's excellent. I would even say maybe confidence in skills before and after. How to measure skill usage in daily work and skill level before and after. That's a tough tackle. Yeah, for sure. You could do some pre and post testing a little bit in terms of skill level. Maybe there's some assessments that we need to do just to see if people are doing things already. Observing the skills on the job, Lisa. Yeah, and that's one where people really just you know it really throws them for a loop just because of the effort that that would take, right? Being able to actually observe people. But man, that's a big one that sometimes folks don't want to really take on. We disguise learner measurement feedback with fun contests and campaigns. That's Luke. I would love to talk to you about that more. That sounds extremely interesting, and I think that could be something because instead of it being feedback, right, we're having a contest. Like think about like hackathons, right, where people come in and all right, we have this problem, and for 30 minutes, everyone's going to problem solve for this thing. Go, and they're doing it, right? I mean, what a way to show that people actually have the skills for them to be doing those things in real time. Tying outcomes beyond surveys like ROI, what they are trying to achieve, absolutely. Yeah, seeking connection of skill improvement due to training efforts. All right, these are all good, and I'll tell you what, they're all right. I mean, as in correct. Because there isn't really one way to do this, folks. I'm gonna don't need to bring you down a little bit, but there isn't a silver bullet here. In fact, my friends over at Red Thread Research. So if you've never heard of them, it's a wonderful um, research and consulting group. You can subscribe and get awesome reports. There's a free subscription you can get, and you can actually join a community. It's almost like going on LinkedIn, but it's all about research and data and those types of things. So they did a little thing well, in 2024 now, but they asked a question around, how do we measure skills? What are we doing in measuring skills today? And these are some of the things that folks talked about, right? We're doing it via performance feedback, self-assessment, formal assessment. There's that formal observation. So we've got some assessments and some observations. We've got some inference from work data and even comparing to external benchmarks. So you know that the answer is probably a little bit of all of this, right? A lot of it depends on, what can I do in the business today? What can we handle? What do we have the capacity to do? What will the business react to the most or the best? And that's where that partnership comes in again. It's like, well, if I do three of these things, can we do that? And it might be different for different levels of skills. You might have, you know, you might have a library of like, you're going to have a library of what, hundreds of skills, but you might be really focusing on 6 or 7 of them, and you give it a different amount of rigor based on what those skills are. But you can see there's no magic bullet here in terms of what companies are doing and how they're doing it. A lot of this was things that you came up with in the chat. So see how smart you are. You didn't even have to read the research. So I want to next talk about, so we've kind of defined what the problem is, what the implications are, things that we could do. Now I want to talk about how can technology help us? How can we scale a piece of this puzzle? We're not going to necessarily go after the whole thing, but there are some pieces here that technologies like Metrics That Matter can help you with. And this involves the big piece of it is, of course, we have to make sure that our skills are mapped into our courses. We have to make sure that we have our associated courses and our skills as part of our measurement strategy. So it's not just dumping, oh, this one course, yeah, there's 35 skills in it, just put them all in there, right? We want to be a little bit more intentional about that, especially when it comes to the ones that we really want to focus on. And then, as some of you guys mentioned in the chat, even we got to be able to connect them to business outcomes or some type of financial L&D metrics like like a benefit to cost ratio, or maybe some other ROI type measures. We want to be able to connect it to talent and performance outcomes. You saw that was at the top of that red thread research. So it's about looking at things that are being developed, how they're being developed, seeing where there's some application, and being able to pull that through into performance development and even more, right? We talked about, again, workforce planning. Right? Do we even know? So we know we need these 7 key these skills. Where do they sit in the organization? Do we even know? We might actually have the skills already. Maybe we don't need to develop those as much as we do think. So that's where we have to, use some of our data and be data enabled and figure out where do we even want to put these skills in terms of our courses and put them in the path of our learners. But always remember that we've got to connect them to business outcomes. It's not just about, oh yeah, we've got 235 skills and that's across 500 courses, and we taught project management 1,300 times, right? We want no, right? That's efficiency metrics, that's butts in seats, and that doesn't help us. We gotta move past that. We know we do, and skills is a way for us to do that piece. By the way, I see some chats going on. That's great. If you have a specific question, you can put that in the chat. You can and make sure I am I'm looking over at that every once in a while. So please stop me if you need to talk about something specific. I want to move into then. Well, what does a skills journey kind of look like? What does that look like from a learner's perspective, or from the L&D's perspective, in terms of this skills-based approach? Now, I'm not saying that this is the method. It's one that we Explorance and Metrics That Matter are looking at in terms of what this kind of looks like, so that we can tie our technology into it. So it's a little simplified, but we need to first identify our skills, right? Where are the skills gaps? Where are the capabilities? Where do they even sit in the business? And what do we really need to pump up? And how you do that, that's 100 ways you can do that. 360s, assessments. You might have the industry. You might be in a specific industry, and it's telling you, hey, to be competitive, you better have these 3 key skills or these 7 skills, or every year there's a list of, hey, these are the next 10 skills you need to learn to even stay alive in your industry, right? So they try to use a little fear to drive us into what those skills are, but we do need a way to identify those and to prioritize them, because again, you can't just be throwing 300 skills out there. And then based on that, it's all right, well, how do we map those in? So I think that's one piece where I think a lot of technology is doing that now. They're coming with their own skill hierarchies built into the tools as a first glance. Obviously, you have the ability to adjust that. You're looking at courses with skills, courses without skills. This can also be a great exercise to even go through all of your catalog and your content, and maybe it's like, wow, we can't really map our top skills to these 5 courses. Maybe we should just pull them out, right? Maybe they're not even relevant anymore. So it's a way to kind of look through what you have today. The next piece, pretty obvious, right? Training occurs, and we have it in different shapes, sizes, and forms today more than ever. Often includes a baseline skill assessment. Someone mentioned that in the chat. Maybe it's a pre-assessment, something that they do before or just at the beginning of training. We want to have a lot of practice and feedback built into the training, especially with skills-based training. So assessment really, and measurement measurement is happening during the training itself. As they get practice and they get feedback on that practice, that's built in, and we're capturing that as well. Now we have immediate verification. Right? We're going to do something. Maybe it's a test. Maybe it's a post-assessment of skills. Maybe it's a post-event evaluation, like what we do with our learners. But then there's these other, and this came up in both the Redford research, and someone brought this up in the chat around observations. And we've broken this up into two sides, an internal observation and kind of a or informal and formal observation. Where the informal is it's more internal of skills used on the job. You know, have we witnessed? So Steve did some project manager training. Have we witnessed him applying those skills back to the job? Have I, as a learner, said that I've applied this back to the job? Am I seeing performance improvement of myself? But then I can also ask the manager. We can ask the manager that. We can ask maybe some other third party, some other folks, and get their feedback. Then there's the formal side. Now this may or may not exist, right? The informal might be enough, but there might be some formal things that we're doing, either by internal SMEs or external SMEs, like certifications, like the PMP certification, if I stick with this project management example. So that might be some the way that you're tracking people that have skills, like, hey, we need project management skills. Oh, do we have any certified PMPs in the company? Let's go look and find out. That's a way to verify that people have those skills. And here's performance management, right? We want to pull it through in our reviews to see if the skills have been developed, if they are growing me as an employee. Have we responded to skill needs from the previous year? So maybe my manager and I sat down and said, hey, you need to develop, these two skills to really move up to the next level. So at the end of the year, have you done that? How? Who's seen it? I've seen it. So you're having those discussions and pulling it through. And then of course we have to have L&D in here to help us see that that's what L&D has been doing and how we have been contributing to the business outcomes and how we can keep contributing to that level of contribution. Now, let me just ask a quick question. Go ahead and answer in the chat. But does this seem familiar? Does it seem logical? Does it seem like this is something like, well, yeah, this could be a typical user journey when we're thinking about skills. Go ahead and give me some feedback there in the chat if you can. Giving some thumbs up. That's good. Just making sure everyone's awake. So if we can accept this as an approach, as a journey with skills, then let's think about now how does a technology like Metrics That Matter, how do we come in and help you with this? And I said it's a piece of a puzzle, right? We're not condoning, we're not coming in and saying, oh, we're going to take over your entire performance management process. No, but we can come in and help with certain pieces of this. And we can help automate things. So you've identified your skills. So I'm using an instructor development example here. I was in charge of instructor certification for a phone company back in the day. Like I said, yes, I'm that old. I was also involved in, and that involved an external body. I was also involved in instructor certification at McDonald's, Hamburger University, where again, we had professors at Hamburger University, and they had to be internally certified, and it was a very rigorous process. So something that's been near and dear to my heart. So we think about it. We've identified some skills here, and I just put there's a lot more into it, but 4 major areas around classroom management, delivery, facilitation, and connectors. And we've mapped these 4 to 3 courses. We have a course on delivery versus facilitation, one about how to create the right environment, and one on questioning skills. So we've got training. We have a training program. It's ILT. It's full of simulations. It's full of practice and feedback. So we're getting we're assessing some things already in training. Now our MTM can help you. So it's already helped you with the mapping of this because you've told your LMS or you've told you've got a skills inventory and you've mapped these things in, and MTM has ingested that. And that's all you have to do because it's going, when you create an evaluation for that delivery versus facilitation course, it's going to bring those skills right onto the survey. It's going to be asking questions like, what is your confidence level in these skills? Will you be able to apply them? What business outcomes are these skills most tied to? And you can put these questions right on the post-event survey, and they'll just pop in there for you automatically. And you can do this with learners. You may also choose to do them with instructors. We do have an instructor post-event. This gives it a new kind of look and feel because those instructors are probably also in the position of being subject matter experts in what they're instructing. They may be giving these simulations and practice and feedback. They may be signing off on the assessment of folks in the classroom. So we can collect the feedback from their point of view as well. Now let's move on to the informal side of it. So we've got some internal observations of skills. So I'm taking this course, I've passed it, I've given what I think is going to be most impactful immediately. But now we can reach out to myself again. Maybe it's 90 days later. You can reach out to my manager 90 days later and ask questions around my skills. Have they seen me apply them? Can they provide an example? What type of things are these skills connecting to? And now we're actually introducing a new thing that we're right now calling peers. So this is ability we know managers don't always, let's face it, even those of us that might be people managers, we don't always know everything our folks are doing with skills, right? We're not observing them every day. We don't know. But who does know are the people they're working with every day. So maybe they're on a project team, maybe they're working with a group somewhere in the business, and they are observing me. They do see what I'm doing. They are able to provide feedback on not only what I'm doing, but how I'm doing it or how I'm applying it. So let's let me decide. Okay, yeah, here's 5 people that I work with every day. I want to get their feedback. Kind of like performance evaluation, but not. I'm not asking them to evaluate me on a 1 through 5 scale or that I've mastered anything. It's gaining that informal feedback of yes, we're observing this skill. Here's some other examples, right? We're collecting this data from a different party than just the person, the learner or their manager. And then you still might have this formal, either on the job or external verification. Someone who's qualified to verify, you're tracking and documenting it somewhere. Could be in your LMS, right? Where you're able to list people's skills or certifications, kind of like on your LinkedIn profile. It could be a facilitator certification internally. It could be externally, right? ATD has a certification. There's a CTT Plus certification for technical trainers. So that might be part of this might be part of your strategy. And this is why we have this map like this, so that we can kind of map out, well, what do we want to do internally? What do we want to do externally? And then the performance management piece kind of pulls it back together in terms of you're probably collecting feedback in performance management through 360s or 180s or however you're doing that. And now we can also feed in some of this stuff from how we've been collecting data with our post-event and follow-up surveys. And then the last piece of this, which really it's not last, it's just there, but it's something that we're doing in real time throughout the life cycle of these skills journeys. But we're communicating with our program owners, our business stakeholders, folks in L&D ops and our sponsors, and we're able to tell them this is how skills are showing up in learning and in the business. This is how we are impacting the development and acquisition and application of these skills. And we can be communicating that so that they start hearing our story. And again, it's not so much about the data itself, but the way that we bring this story to life. So in Metrics That Matter, as we're starting to build this, there's some questions that we're trying to answer with the data and how it might look. All right, so these are just some early looks at how we are thinking about showing off the data. But when we think about it, there's questions that we want to answer from L&D. We want to be able to answer things like, all right, well, what skills are L&D impacting the most? I mean, what skills are showing up as people are filling out these post events and these follow-ups? So we can see, oh, well, these are the top 5 skills impacted by training this month. Or it could be this quarter or this year. You could be the top 10 skills, top 7 skills, whatever you want to filter this to. Um, and you can see really quickly, oh, yeah, okay, these are the top 5 skills. But then there's other questions that this might raise for you that you need to investigate, right? It gives you some other avenues of a story you might want to tell. Like, for instance, maybe, gosh, where's AI literacy? It's not showing up at all this month. Like, what the heck? That's one of our most highest priority skills that we're trying to impact. Now, it could be that there was just no training was offered that month, so you're okay. But if there was, then yeah, you might have an issue here. But it's a way to you're monitoring this and looking and saying, okay, what am I noticing? What am I wondering? Does this seem okay to me? Does it seem like it might be off? Right? You have to be able to line this up with the expectations of what you're thinking you're going to be impacting on a regular basis. And this is part of that context I talked about, right? It's not just the data or the numbers that are showing there, but it's the context around, well, what are we expecting? What do we think should be the most impacted skills in a given month, or again, whatever your reporting timeline might be. Another question, well, what courses are driving our top skills, right? We've got some prioritized skills here on the left-hand side. Now, what courses are they showing up in the most as having impact? So if we're focusing on the skill of conflict resolution, well, gosh, it's really showing up a lot in managing project stakeholders and becoming a scrum master. That's kind of, I would expect that, right? Because if I'm trying to learn about conflict resolution, there's probably going to be some conflicts as I'm managing project stakeholders. So again, it's okay that I would expect that. Same thing with maybe becoming a scrum master, because you've got to manage those weekly sessions. You got to make sure people are focusing on the right things. So that's where it's showing up. So when the business is saying, hey, show me our top prioritized skills and where are they showing up? Right? We can say that with confidence from L&D that this is what our learners and or managers and or peers, depending on how we're bucketing all this data, this is where this stuff is showing up. So if I'm thinking about it as, and you can use this too as part of your marketing, part of your cataloging. Hey, you want to take AI in project management? Well, you're going to get a lot of different skills, right? AI literacy, big skill in AI and project management, which we would expect by the title. But hey, it's also in cost management. It's also showing up in risk management, and it's a little bit here in time management. So that's awesome. We've got one course that's hitting 3 or 4 of our big skills, and we can show this off, right? This becomes, again, it's not just data on a screen. It becomes part of our story. This is where this skill is showing up, and it's showing up big. And we can push that through to our stakeholders, maybe even down to the learners, right? It's almost like a cataloging. Like some universities will use their feedback in terms of transparency and revealing to the students, so that when they're picking courses, it's like, wow, this course is getting 4 stars out of 5. You might want to think about that course as part of what one of your electives. This is kind of almost the same thing, but it's carrying a little bit more weight because these are what people are indicating in terms of impact and application. So then let's think about an ROI metric. So we think about skills, we want to connect them to business outcomes. One of those outcomes we talked about was kind of an ROI, monetary financial metric. So can we ask the question, well, what skills are where are we getting the most cost benefit? Or where are we getting the least cost benefit? So NTM already calculates benefit to cost ratio based on what you tell it in terms of things like average salary, average cost per learner, average cost per program, those types of metrics. And it calculates that. And usually we show that at a course level or at an overall ranking. But we were thinking, well, that'd be awesome if we could attach it to the skills. And so again, we could see if we're really focused on a particular skill, like, wow, we're really focusing on basic digital skills here. And yet, we're getting basically $2 back for every dollar we spend. And it's a positive number. It's great, but not as good as, time management, where we're getting almost $20 back for every dollar we spend, or cost management. And then as we think about other financial or monetary metrics, one thing that Metrics That Matter is bringing to the plate this year as well is being able to monetize some of our other key metrics. For example, scrap learning, which is a key metric that NTM has, which measures how much training is being wasted. So when we asked learners, how much of this training are you going to apply back on the job? If they say 50%, that means there's 50% wasted. Well, we should be able to attach a dollar value to that. And we can. And that's what we can do with that too. We can say, all right, well, let's look at our scrap waste and that financial metric. And instead of attaching that to a course, we can now attach that to a skill. One of our clients actually is helping us with that piece of it in terms of waste. And their learner population is they charge it's a consultancy, and they charge hourly rates, and they're expensive. So when they measure scrap learning in NTM, it's not just, well, 50% of the learning is being wasted. It's 50% of their time, because they're spending 10 hours in a course. And if they're wasting 10 hours, or they're wasting 50%, they're wasting 5 hours. Multiply that by their hourly rate, multiply that by the number of people, because this is a huge organization, and you're not just, you're wasting money. And if you're trying to teach a skill, and learners are saying, well, yeah, this skill, it's great, but I'm only applying whatever, 30% of it, then we can attach that to a rate and show that skill while it's being taught, it's not having an impact. It's not being applied back on the job, and it's wasting people's time, and it's wasting money. And then we can pivot and focus in on that skill and do some more investigation with our post and follow-up evaluations and figure out how to fix it. But the key thing here is we're trying to talk the language of the business. And the language of the business talks financially and in money and in people and in time. So we're trying to bring all that to bear while when we're talking about skills. All right, little closing and call to action here. So what we've seen really is a mixed method approach is best. Right? It's not hugely new, but it's a different application. We have our skills connected to training. We conduct training with skill practice and verification. We've got our follow-ups. We've got our formal verifications. And then we connect all that to performance assessments and link it to business goals. But the key takeaway that I'm trying to present to you today is it's not just reporting results, it's telling your story. You're going to have to tell stories. You're going to have to show examples of skills leading to outcomes, and it becomes part of your culture by putting this on repeat. So where do we go from here? If you haven't done it already, you're going to move from reporting training activity to demonstrating skill impact. Right? We're going to go from just monitoring our data, meaning just looking at it on dashboards and reports, and we're going to move to managing that data. we're going to manage it by telling stories about it, by making recommendations, pulling out key insights, and taking action. And that's what we're trying to do when we engage our stakeholders. We're engaging them in the front end to help us define what the critical skills are, connect them to measurable KPIs, like whatever it might be, productivity, engagement, attrition, um, efficiency, something, right? And make them part of the process. And then use a tool like MTM to be able to track all that, analyze it, and communicate it. All right, one plug here, and then I'm going to ask for questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or even just an observation you've made today, maybe one thing you're going to take away from this discussion. I know a couple of you are thinking about maybe connecting on something because someone else mentioned something, which is awesome. For those of you that are familiar with us or not familiar with us, hopefully you're a little bit more familiar with us now, but you can become even more familiar with us with our Explorance World Conference. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we've got different products with different audiences, higher ed and corporate, HR and learning development, and other groups. And once a year, we bring them all together where we spend time learning with each other, from each other. We have client presentations. We have all-star keynoters that come in to talk to us, product demos, get answers to your questions, and learn more about the world of measurement, evaluation, and feedback. A lot of talk about AI, of course, and it's going to be a great way to kick off your summer in June 16th through 19th. This year, so last couple of years, we've been up in our home city of Montreal, Canada. This year, one of our clients, Boston University, said, hey, we'd love to host you. We'd love to host Explorance World. We're a great city with great resources. And we said, that's awesome. Why don't we do that? So that's where we're headed. If you register soon, I put a little 25% discount there for you on the list price. You can use that code. We will send out these slides. So if you missed that, that's okay. When will the skills option be available on dashboards and/or Millie? So we're hoping to release this in the middle of this year. So hopefully by Explorance World, that's our target date, is to release this so that we can actually use Explorance World as a way to introduce it to our current clients and then also anybody who likes to attend and find out more about it. We're also presenting at Brandon Hall. So for any of you that may have registered and won Brandon Hall Awards, awesome. If you're going to that conference, we will also be there. Our Metrics That Matter General Manager at Large, Michael Cohen, will be presenting there, and we'll also have a booth. You can come by and see us there as well. So lots of different ways to engage with us. In the resources section, you will see a lot of, there's some case studies and some brochures to find out more about Explorance and Metrics That Matter. Luke, a little bit more on how you come up with a monetary value cost benefit on different skills. Yeah, so without getting too technical, MTM already calculates benefit to cost ratio. We're using our estimated performance improvement KPI where people are estimating how much of this they can use on the job, how much of improvement are they going to see, and how much of that improvement is strictly based on the training. So we're using that calculation, plus we're asking about average cost of learning or training and average salary, and that becomes part of that cost benefit calculation. So what you would be able to do is instead of asking it for BCR on a course, you will just ask MTM to produce it based on a skill or even a skill cluster. So that's where that comes from. It's something we do today with benefit to cost ratio. It's just we're usually attaching it to a course or a series of courses, or maybe it's like a leadership development program. But what we're going to be doing here is now taking it from the course and attaching it to a specific skill. Any other questions? Comments? I'll even take a smart remark now that we're best friends. If you need more information, there's my email. Please reach out. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you. Hope we see or hear from you again in a future webinar, maybe at Explorance World, maybe at Brandon Hall. I appreciate everyone's time on a Wednesday, and come reach out and talk to us. We'd love to help you in your skills journey. Thank you.